Hello and welcome to a 4-minute late broadcast. Let me explain. It seems my broadcast key changed unexpectedly, which means when I clicked go live, absolutely nothing happened, just lots of wonderful error messages. So let me apologise for those that showed up promptly at 4 PM and I am rather tardily starting my broadcast at 4:04 PM. So, and the problem is with Twitch, and I have yet to find out the mechanism that allows me to solve this, is you can't pre-test your broadcast. When you click that button, you go live. So there isn't really a way to test that without also going live. So we may do some other broadcasts, like test broadcasts, that you may or may not see. But then it actually gets added to the library, so eek, unless you can delete that. Anyway, the subject of today's broadcast. I've had a request. The request is, we would like to know more about HUD graphics in Game Guru. That is, displaying things on top of the game, on top of the screen itself. So you play the game, maybe you find a note, and then you want to display some graphic on the screen as if you're reading the note, and then when you finish reading it, you can press a key, and then that note will disappear, then you can carry on playing the game. That sort of thing. But you can also use HUDs for other things, like additional status panels. Let's say you wanted something on the screen to show, say, how many things you collected, or a compass, or a map, or anything like that. So that's really what we're going to be focusing in on today. And again, I apologise, we're going to have to delve a little bit into Lua, because that's where all the clever stuff is hiding. Of course, in the future, we'll be able to have some drag and drop things where you can just drop in a compass, or a map, or some status thing, and it will just instantly appear on the screen, and you can start configuring it with a bit of drag and drop and a few sliders. But right now, all the magic is contained inside Lua when you get to this level of fun. So without further ado, I'm going to show you a little demonstration of what I'm talking about, and then dive straight into creating our own stuff. And let me remind you, this is entirely unscripted. I have no script in front of me. I only have a vague idea what I want to talk about, and just to make matters a little bit more interesting, I haven't actually dabbled in this kind of stuff for quite a while. I've been focused on optimizations and DX11 stuff. So this is basically going out unedited, uncut, live. When it goes wrong, you know it's going to be live. So what I want to show you initially is a game that already has a HUD graphic. Now, if you are a frequenter of these broadcasts, you will already know what I'm about to show you. It's the Cartoon Antics level, and it actually contains oh crap, it contains a lot of trees. As you can see, I have been experimenting with performance. One of the great things to do is add lots of trees into your level. That will definitely test one's performance. It shouldn't get in the way of what I wanted to demonstrate. This is not the level you're going to get in Game Guru when you load Cartoon Antics. This is me messing about with the level and accidentally saving over the sort of the master file. Fortunately, there are many versions of the unmessed up level out there in the world. So what you're looking at here, aside from the trees, is that sign at the top, collect the coins. And the idea is, when you've collected 100 of the coins scattered around the world, that sign will be removed and you'll get a, you've won the game sort of sign. So that's sort of what a HUD graphic is, and we're going to see what we can do with this, the extent to which you can use these HUD graphics. And you'll be discovering it at the same time I am. And I always work from the known into the unknown, and I don't want to start with a blank script, because we'll spend 10 minutes me scratching my head wondering which line of code is wrong. I like to start with something that works and then slowly modify it to suit my purposes. So I think what we're going to do is go into the script bank. So from your Game Guru root folder, you go into Files and then Script Bank, and then we're going to look for a script that we know works, and that was of course the Cartoon Antics one. So we can just quickly look through here. Yeah, my guess is correct. The Cartoon Antics scripts, the special ones, I've hidden inside Stories and Cartoon Antics folder. So these are the 3 scripts that are actually used in that game. And one of them, I'm going to guess, display. Yeah, this is the one that's going to load in some cool stuff and display some cool stuff. Now, I'm not going to make the mistake I made with the level and overwrite it all. I'm actually just going to copy this script to something else that I can actually use. So I'm just going to take this, I'm going to go back into Stories, and I'm going to create a new project, a new folder. And all this is just to kind of clean up. When I create scripts, I want to put them in places where it's nice and clean, instead of dumping them all into the root folder and just having it get lost. So I'm not sure what kind of game we want to make. So let's just keep it simple. Let's say it's about you know, you're collecting items, something pops up on the screen, something simple like that. So we'll call it like an adventure game. So maybe we'll call it Lee's Adventure. And we're going to copy the file that we found in Cartoon Antics folder, coin display, and we can change this to something like a my display. Very generic, because I haven't the faintest idea what it's going to do yet. But in terms of a name that's appropriate, this does quite well so far. And have you noticed, as always with scripts, make sure that your function for init and main match the file name, otherwise your script will not work. And then we've got a command called load images cartoon. Now I already know from some memory remnant that if we look inside the images folder, we actually have some folders here called cartoon, and those are actually the graphics from Cartoon Antics. So I'm going to create another folder just for my graphics, and just keep things nice and simple for me. I'm going to call it Lee's Adventure. And notice I've chosen a different naming convention. There's no space, there's no capitals. It's just to remind myself, you know, when I'm inside that folder, which one I'm in. Am I in the script folder or am I in the graphics folder? You could make it exactly the same. It's entirely up to you if you want to do that. But for me, I like to kind of know where I am. So that's why I've done that. And I'm just going to copy these two images into this folder. So I already have some PNGs to start off with. The naming convention for these are very important. They have to start at 000 and then 001, then all the way through to 999. As you can guess, you can have 1000 PNG images loaded in your script, and then you can use them. So you'll see how those are used a little bit later. So now we need to copy this file name exactly, go back to the script and put that in there. So as you can see, now we're specifying a different folder. We're specifying our own graphics folder. And this is where we can start off having a good time. So as you can see, the script is actually quite simple. It's a bit badly formatted, so just for my own benefit, keep that end where it's supposed to be. And as you can see, it starts at image 0. You can set the position, and there's one or two other things. We don't need those for now, so we can delete anything we don't like the look of. In fact, we're going to delete everything that isn't looking like an image command, which is all that. Okay, and just to make sure we haven't missed any, if we go to the global.lua, which can also be found in the script bank, this gives you a list of all the HUD graphics commands. So I think we've covered them all. We've got load image, we saw that. Set image position, we have that one too. You can also see you've actually got little commands here. It's actually two commands that. It sets an X and it sets a Y. So if you want to be really clever, you can actually call that directly inside your script. But we won't go. That's really deep. That's really deep hacky stuff. But you could do that if you wanted to. Lua's very forgiving. We've got show and hide image. We've got both of those with different numbers. That's going to be useful later. Set image alignment. Do we have that? I don't think we do. It takes one parameter. And we're going to find out what that is a little while. I haven't the faintest idea at this stage. We'll just put 0 in for now. Like I said, this is completely ad-libbed. And then it looks like it goes on to text. So you can actually draw text onto the screen, which is great. But for now, we're only going to focus on the HUD graphics stuff. Let's remove any duplicates. So we've got a show, we've got a hide. We've already got one of them, one of them. So those are the major ones we have. So now what we want to do is maybe create a blank level, create an entity, assign the entity this script, which will run immediately. It will load those images, and then it will do whatever we do inside this script. Which for now, let's keep it super simple. I want to keep all the commands here, but I'm going to comment them out until I need them. I just want to see what's going on. So if we say 50-50, in my experience that's percentages. So it's 50% across the screen and then 50% down the screen. So that's where we're going to set image what? Well, I think it's going to be image 0. So my guess is once you've set the image, that sets like a temporary X and Y coordinate, and then show image uses that temporary X and Y coordinate to show the image at that location. Again, this is mostly guesswork. There is help actually. There is a Lua guide elsewhere. There's one online. You're going to have to find that. I have no idea where it is now. It moved a few times, so now I don't know where it is. I could probably dig it out for you if you really want to see that, or maybe somebody knows where it is and can post it in the chat, and then I can repeat it verbally. So that's a little script, my display dot Lua. Now we want a blank level. Don't fancy seeing that many trees in my little test game. We're going to have a start marker, like so. And then we're going to need a dynamic object. You can't use a static object to assign a script to, it just ignores it. So even though it makes absolutely no sense, I'm going to pick this. Welded barrel. You notice it's green, that means it's dynamic. If we press Y, it goes to static, which means it's rock solid. It doesn't participate in the game except to stop you. It has physics, but apart from that, it has nothing. We want a green one, which is dynamic. That means it's going to be live in the game. If we go to properties, and then change the script for this one, which is here, main, default.lua is the one it's given. That script actually does nothing. And then what we can do is click this little icon here, go to stories, new folder, Lee's Adventure, and then select my display.lua. That's the script we've just been editing. And we assign it like so. So now when we click apply changes, the idea is when we start the level, this static one's going to do nothing. It's going to sit there being boring. But this one is going to be constantly running that script. By that, what I mean is when you first start the game, it will call load images. And then for as long as that barrel is alive or active, it's going to go round and round and round, going set image, show image, set image, show image, set image, and so on and so forth. So in theory, I wonder what we would see. But before we do that, let's save our level. So I was going to save early, save often. And of course we cross our fingers now, because what we're expecting to see is a big graphic on the screen. Yes. So there you go. And it looks like it centered it automatically as well. So it's actually put it at 50%, 50%, but it's using the center of the image as its anchor point, which is why it's perfectly squared off. But we don't want to collect the coins. We've seen that. That's old news. We want our own stuff. So if you go back into Script Bank Images Lee's Adventure, remember our graphics folder, we have several PNGs. I'll delete the second one. Don't need more. I want my own stuff. So currently, if you look at this, it's nice. Collect the coins. If you look at the alpha channel, it's got an alpha channel, which is something we don't necessarily want. But we do want this image, the PNG, I should say. So let's create a nice big one. Say 512 by 512. I apologise for the use of this. What is probably considered quite an old art package now, but it's something that, you know, you get used to a thing and you keep using it. I dare say there's better ways. So I've just painted it at this 256 cube by white. Then we're going to go to create. Nope, I'm going to do new mask from this white image. Source luminance, so it's going to be 100% alpha. Then once you've created it, you can save it. You can delete that old alpha and you put the new alpha in. And now it's a nice white square. And then we can do what we want with that. So now we've got that, we can give it our own colour. So maybe we want an act of parchment. There you go, nice parchment colour. Obviously squash it all down. I say obviously, it's not obvious at all. It took me a while to figure this tool out. And then get rid of the selection. And you can say like hello traveller. And then this is the story of how you got very rich very quickly. There you go. There's your quest. Now obviously all that's not going to fit on the little square, so let's just squash it like this. There you go. It's a nice three-liner. I'm not going to play around with graphics all day. That's not what you've come here to watch. So as you can imagine, art is a whole universe all by itself, and this is not something I want to dwell on. Once upon a time I used to be good at art, back in the 8-bit days when an entire graphic was actually a 4x4 pixel arrangement. Now 512 just scares the hell out of me. So there you go, that's our little parchment, that's what we'll find on the floor. So now, having saved it, all we're going to do is rerun the game. and it's going to load that graphic in dynamically. As you see, you can change it, come out, change your graphic, go back in. It doesn't remember the original image. It will delete that image and then load in the new one. So now as you run around, you are constantly confronted by this, because that barrel script, the dynamic barrel, is constantly going round and round and round and round, constantly saying, I'm drawing this, I'm drawing this. So what you can actually do instead is have a bit more logic, like, well, let's only display it when you get near it, shall we? Now again, I'm not that comfortable writing code from scratch because of the typos you can encourage. So I'm a big advocate of cutting and pasting wherever possible. So find a script, another script that's familiar to you, something that you know, well, it must be able to do that functionality, and then just go in and just copy and paste. So all I want to do is get the play distance, as long as you're within, say, 120 units and the player is still alive, then you will show that. And if you're not, then you want to hide that, which I'm guessing, and I'm pretty sure that's a good guess, hide image will remove it. So remember to save the script, make sure that you're outside of the test game, then run back in. It will reload the script, reload the graphic, and then it will show us this. Now hopefully when we get within 120 units, then it displays the parchment, and you can sort of, So imagine instead of a barrel, it's a piece of paper on a desk, and then when you go near it, you get a zoomed in view. But there's other things you can do, like, you've got to press the E key before you can read it, which again is going back and applying more logic. And again, rather than us trying to figure out where all the commands are supposed to be, because it's all very difficult, then what about a door script which has to use the E key to unlock and open the door? So you can see we've got actually a command here. We've got a prompt and the actual variable we're going to need. So if we go back to our script, we don't need that anymore, we can remove that. Go back to my display. So normally when you get close to it, you would actually show it straight away. But what if instead we actually do a prompt to say press E to read the parchment. Yes, nice word. Probably spelt wrong. So we have an instruction here which says, you've pressed E, but then you probably don't want to keep holding down E whilst you're reading it, right? You probably just want to flick a flag or something, which Lua lets us to do very easily. And in order to create a little bit of a global order, we'll have my display reading note equals 0. That's our global variable. So when you press E, we're going to set our global variable to 1. And now we have that wonderful thing. We can say something like, if our global variable is 1, then display that or hide it. But of course you can see there's some extra logic floating about. See, player distance is so what do we do there? Well, what if that was inside there? All of this was inside there, like so. And then when you suddenly move far away, it hides the image, and it also sets this global flag back to 0 because you're too far away. You can't read it from that distance. Now in theory, I think that should do what we need it to do. But of course, there's better logic than this. This is really hacked in on the fly, but I think it will work. For example, you've got two hide images, and that's very crude. You don't really want to do lots of things like that. You want variables to control the execution of those actions and only do them one at a time. So now, imagine it's just a parchment. Maybe I shouldn't have picked a barrel, but let's read the barrel. So we press E once, quick, stab, boom. Now you can, hello traveller, this is the story of how you got very rich very quickly. And then as you move away from it, it disappears, and as you see, the whole process has been reset. So that's a simple idea of how to use images. Now, I wanted to keep this nice, quick and concise, so what I want to do is show you a second image. I'm pretty sure this allows you to have multiple images on the screen. And now I'm going to do the test by saving out another file. We'll call it 001. As you imagine, it's the next index up. We'll change the colour to we know it's something different. And then we will have some text along the lines of new graphic. Now let's say this is something smaller, like a status panel for your game. In fact, no, let's actually do something practical, like level. Yeah, let's say you wanted to do an underwater thing and you wanted to count how long you was under the water level. Then you could have an air level graphic in addition to some bar or something like that. And we'll change the size. So we'll chop that to about this size and save that. Now, because it's actually in the same folder, let's go back to Script Bank Images Lee's Adventure. Because it's in the same one as this one, it loads them all in. You've just specified the folder, it loads every single PNG with this naming convention into memory. So in theory, all you have to do with your script is show image 1 instead of show image 0. So if we change all the zeros to 1, in theory we should use that second graphic. I say in theory because until you click the test game button, have a good gander, you'll absolutely not know. Okay. Press E. There you go. We've got the different graphic. Now what I want to find out in the next couple of minutes is can I actually have both graphics on the screen at the same time? I think I can. And now what I'm going to do is have full control of this again, so you've got your parchment, but we also have this. And what I want to do is have a new piece of code down here. We've already used hide image. And what I want to do, I want to have a different position and I'm going to show image 1, yeah? And we want it in the corner, so let's say 5% and then 5%, no, let's say 10% across. Which actually where image alignment might come in, but we're going to have a play around with that next. So we've saved that. As you see, we've restored the parchment stuff and we've added 2 new lines. That should change this sort of temporary XY pointer and then show another image. This is image 1. So in theory we should still be able to have our original parchment image, but always have air level in the top corner. The test is when I press E, if that air level stays on screen, we're happy days, we can have loads of images on the screen. So I'm pressing E, or holding it down, and I'm not seeing anything. So I'm suspecting we're pressing E, but then the image is being completely overwritten by that one, and so you're never actually seeing the parchment. Of course, there are many ways in which you can have multiple images, but it looks like you can only have one at any one time. So, for example, if you wanted to have both, you would say only use that when that was the global variable was 0. So by default, you're showing it. But as soon as you're reading the note, that global variable is 1, so this will be skipped, and so on and so forth. I'm going to let that run because what happens if you show but I'm not necessarily hiding? Will it keep it on the screen? Because I fancy there was a way in which you could have multiple images on the screen. But always in the pursuit for stability. Oh, I've forgotten a then command. I am terrible. Absolutely terrible at that. There you go. The game still runs, it's just not going to run that script. We need to put a then. Yes, and actually there's an editor that I'm not using at the moment, but I'm going to use it very soon. Something called Lua Editor. Apparently, its syntax is and it actually tells you that you've missed thens out. Very useful idea. So this shouldn't error the script, and when we get near, we can press E, and then when we press E, it gets rid of that, and then you can read the parchment. And then when you move away, yeah. So my gut feel is, you can only ever have one graphic on the screen at any one time. And so the idea of set image position, it's a live thing. It's not a temporary that gets passed to an image. It is the image. It's one coordinate for any image that you want on the screen. And to prove that, I'm going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to create a second global variable. And I'm going to call it sweep. And let's see how long it takes you to guess what I'm going to do with my new global variable. And I'm going to set image position to sweep 5, and then sweep equals sweep plus 1 if sweep is greater than 100%, then set sweep to minus 50%, and then end that conditional action. And then we get rid of this, and we get rid of this. And now what will happen, I wonder? Oh, I know what's going to happen. Maybe you can guess what's going to happen. But this proves that the set image position command is actually, it's directly associated with the image. It's not a temporary that's transferred. It's going to modify the position of the HUD graphic immediately as soon as you issue that command. And if we move the barrel and press E, that graphic should change, but no position, because the position is now being completely overridden. Yeah. So there you go. So you can have one image You can move its position completely. One thing I want to try though before we, end a very short list of HUD commands, it's the alignment one, the one that we've not actually looked at so far. So if we restore the original functionality, get rid of my silly playing around, and what we're going to do is see what happens with set image alignment. Now it looks like all the commands are live and set to one image, so if I just set image alignment 0 and then run and see if anything different in our level. Now alignment to me usually means centered and left, so it looks like our alignment hasn't changed one jot. So by default it's 0 means center. That's what I'm concluding. So if we set the script to 1 and then run, my guess is our graphics are going to be offset now to some degree. Yeah. Now, I bet you can guess what that means. Instead of being having an anchor on the image to its very center, it's actually anchoring to its top left coordinate. The top left corner of that image is now where it's going to be positioned. And likewise with the parchment, you see this probably a bit better. You see, 50%, 50% puts you right in the center of the screen, and that's where it starts drawing the image. So that's what the image alignment thing is. I don't think there's any other values. I won't try 2 because you might want anchorage in the bottom right, which may be useful if you're doing certain very specific layouts of graphics. But I think what's pretty clear to me is that we need more than one image on the screen. So if there are a lot of people requesting that feature, then that definitely will make a precedent. We are working on Lua quite a bit with the thing that's at the top of the feature board right now. That's going to be the next thing after performance and graphics. And so if there's a lot of, we really need more HUD graphics, not just these 5 commands, then we can sneak those in because they're pretty quick to add, but it's very important that we do things in the right order and we don't get distracted. But yeah, it looks like there is only 2 modes, 0 and 1, and that I think concludes all the HUD graphics commands. So in the space of just under 30 minutes, you've learned everything about HUD graphics. How to create new folders, how to put the files in. They have to be PNGs, they have to be that particular file format, 000 and then 001. You've learned the actual commands and how they actually get used, and you also understand it's one graphic and then the image position can actually position it in real time. So hopefully that is a nice all-encompassing introduction to HUD graphics and where we can go next with it. So given that, I'm quite pleased that I did it in the allotted 30 minutes, which is what I hoped to. If I actually gave myself an hour, it would actually take 2 hours. So to give myself 30 minutes and actually hit 30 minutes is actually pretty cool. So I'm just going to look at the broadcast. We have a chat board. If you're watching this as a video, you won't see it. But if you're actually joining us live, you get the opportunity to post questions and generally hurl abuse at the broadcaster. So I'm looking for question marks. Yeah, someone was asking about the time change. That was Wanderer891. No, you arrived on time. It was my hardware and software fighting each other. But it was solved pretty quick and within 3 minutes. So I solved the technical problem very quick. Yes, I was very late, so sorry about that. And we're going to have to put some sort of pre-broadcast test in place, I think, in order to hit this 4 AM perfectly every week, because I think it's very important that if you're bothered to show up on time, I should certainly be bothered to show up on time as well. So we'll have a look at that, we'll have a chat with the team and see if there's anything we can do. Maybe a little 10-minute broadcast in the morning or something like that. So someone's posted the link to the Lua guide, which is great, and I am actually going to show that in my video simply by going to here, posting that, and then you've actually got so that's the website which you'll actually need in order to get to the Game Guru Lua scripting summary and guide. It's actually pretty good. It's huge, in fact. Look, just keeps going on and on. All the things that I forgot are all in here for you to enjoy. So don't think you have to do what I do and muddle through global.lua trying to figure out what commands might or might not do. There are documentation for it all. It's just my style to be able to throw myself into it and intuitively work my way out of it, and I'm glad that I did. So this is the link that you'll need if you want to get a full Lua guide. got another question. Not got a question mark on it, but it starts with, this is from Gersenolt52. Can we use a key when it is pressed once, it displays the image, and if you press the same key, it goes away? Yeah, well, you saw the first part of that, where you press the key and it shows up. In order to reverse that, it's pretty straightforward, but you have to sort of detect that the key has been released, and then set the flag to something else, and then check for that something else, the value that you'd set it for when you detect key press again. And then instead of having just 0 and 1, you'd have 0, 1, 2 and 3 for those 4 states. I haven't pressed anything yet, I am holding down the key, I have just released the key, and I am pressing the key again. So that's 4 states. And then with that, you can press E to show it, and then E again to make it disappear. And hopefully that's clear. But you've got a couple of minutes. You've got many minutes, in fact. I'm not going to dirt out under the hour, but if there's no more questions. But if you're still confused, I can certainly add that to the script to show you how that works. Once you get the idea of logic, it's pretty straightforward. C Commander confirms what I've just said. You can do that by the script, yes. Ravi's replied as well. Gersnolt, what you would do is check for the being held down and then switch to a mode. In fact, everything I just said in text form. Rick Vanna wants to ask. Rick is part of our team, by the way. So if he shows himself to be extremely knowledgeable, it's because he has inside information. Richard Vanna asks, Lee, show the viewers the new rubber band controls in the editor. Yeah, okay. I was going to keep it like a really big secret, but obviously that's not going to happen now. So I'm going to show you a rubber band. But I can't show it you in this because this... Oh, I can actually. Haha, yeah. I've been working on rubber band for a few days. So this has made it into the dev build that I'm currently using. I do have a newer version, but I think I'm going to leave that as a secret. I can show you what I have right now. So if I start a new level, now this has been requested for years. Now you might think how lazy we are that we haven't added it in years and years. It's just simply the amount of work that's required to create a games engine and then a UI on top of it, and then make it really easy to create games and different games, and make sure that we're covering all the bases and in the right order. Gives us a lot of work to do every day, and this is one of those features that, even though it was requested, it wasn't requested as loudly as, say, performance optimizations or the general graphics facilities of the software. But yes, there was enough traction, there was enough noise generated, and we added it. And also when we added it, we realised what a cool feature it is, and we should have added it a while ago. And I'm going to put down a building down just to show you the features that may be in this version. Can't promise it's the latest version, so if something doesn't work, it's because it's not the latest version. In fact, you know what? I'm not going to even use this dev version. I'm going to show you the latest one. Yes, indeed. Which is in here. So what you're looking at now is the massively experimental, totally internal and untested version. But it does have all my rubber banding features. Because I don't want to do half a thing and then show you something that doesn't work. So this is what we've got. It's built as release, so it should be nice and fast. And again, we're going to put down the building, and then we're going to drop down some barrels. So let's put down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then what you can do with the rubber band effect is, instead of having, let's say you wanted to move all these barrels into the other side of the building, you could cheat and just say, well, there you go, the other side of the... But what if you had other things in your scene? You needed them over here. Well, now what you can do is this. It's a rubber band effect. So if you rubber band over the entities that you're interested in and let go, it highlights them all. And then what you can do is grab the widget that's been lovingly prepared for you, hold it down and drag the whole barrels over there, and then click anywhere away from it, and then there you go, you've moved all 10 barrels. That was not possible up until this update, and has been screamingly requested. And so whilst we were at it, we thought, well, wouldn't it be good if you can undo as well? So we've added undo buffers for entity group selection. So if I move them again to, say, over here, oh, it's wrong, you press Control Z, moves them back. What if I highlighted half of them and then accidentally pressed the delete key? Oh, I wanted them. Control Z, undo, so you can actually restore undo as well. So we've actually thought about that. And you've also got the idea that not only can you position, you can also scale the barrels, and you can also rotate the barrels, which of course you can just about see the barrels rotate. They would probably work better if you say extracted this building and had, say, 3 of them, and then you highlighted all the buildings, go to rotate, and you can rotate all the buildings. Now I know what you're thinking, because I was thinking the same thing. Wait a minute, there's 2 ways you can think about rotation. You can rotate around a pivot, or you can rotate the entities individually, and there's benefits in both. But we don't have buttons for both, so I'd be curious to get some feedback on this implementation from my internal team as to whether we go for the locked axis rotate position based on the widget's location or some other arbitrary axis. But that's why I'm calling it an internal version. This is a version you would normally not get to see until the internal team has decided, do we want it like this, or do we want the actual final position of the buildings to be more like that. So that's something we're going to discuss. There's another thing that's pretty cool as well. Let's say you wanted to range select barrels that were all over the place, but it was like, I want to range select, but I don't want to keep selecting those buildings. What you can do is lock the buildings out, like so, and then when you range select, it doesn't include the buildings, you see. So you can actually range select, and then if you want to place things inside the building, you can do so, and then do range select within the building, and it won't pick up the building all the time. So that's a little sneak preview of the rubber band technique and how useful it's going to be moving forward in your editing. And I'm sure there'll be more things you'll want for this. Absolutely, this is a really powerful and cool feature, and you want to be using it all the time, and there'll be more features that you want. But right now we're just going to focus on a few things like position, rotate and scale, and delete. Maybe we can have lock and unlock in there, and properties, so you can edit many properties of many entities in a very quick way. But that's maybe for the future. This update is about performance, and I have to keep reminding everybody about that. We can't go off on a tangent, start adding all sorts of clever toys. We have performance and stability to look after. But I think you'll be pleased that we actually added that. We snuck that in under the radar. So that's what we mean by rubber band. That's what it is. It's the expanding box for entity group selection. So going back to the questions on the chat, Gersonaut52 says, can we use a different key than E? I think you can. If you go to globals, go to the top. These are all your globals that we give you. Notice in addition to key, press E, which is a hard-coded variable which says if it's 1 you've pressed E, or you're holding down E, and if it's 0 you're not holding down E. Underneath it you've got scan code and in key. So we actually give you the keyboard hardware code for what key's been held down, and you've even got in key, which is a string return. So if you press like the letter Y, then the letter Y will be filled inside the string, and then you can do if G in key equals Y, then do whatever you want. So we've given you those facilities. You just have to look through global.lua and see all the wonderful things that you can get access to. Just reading through a little bit more. Scene Commander says the guide only covers Lua commands unique to Game Guru. That's absolutely right. There are many more Lua commands, but just pick up a regular online Lua guide. That'll teach you how to program in Lua. It's a very nice language, if I do say so myself. Rick says, sure, the newer one. I did, so that's done. Got a question here from Oneros. I hope that's right. Question: is there a way to trigger a decal? Make the animation play once and then disappear? I have tried all I can think of. Yeah, I'm sorry for putting you through that. There is no way to actually trigger what we would call in FPS Creator Classic Land a decal. The code's still in there. We have that. But right now the preferred method is to use animated textures on entities. That's the one we're opting for. So if I show you some of our decals, and let's say I pick the purple explosion one, and then I can use the right mouse button to change my perspective if you didn't already know about it. And so we've got this, we can rotate the little guy. Actually it's a decal, isn't it? Yeah. So as you can see, you would call that a decal, that boom, one explosion and then it disappears. So what you can actually do is create your own decal, but it's going to be an animated entity. and then you would basically trigger the animation. It would run through all 16 frames, and then you would hide the entity. So rather than dealing with this other kind of asset, which we call a decal, now just deal with entities. You can drop the entity into your world, hide it initially, and then when you need it, you can show it, run its animation, run it to 16, and then hide it and then disappear. So, but it's actually quite involved to do that, and there's gaps in my knowledge to actually show you that immediately right now. But that's your starting point. Have a play around with these decals. You'll find them in the decals folder, and see the extent to which they're used, see what scripts are attached to them, and then go from there. So you'll find them in decals. Explosion 1, you can see it's actually linked to a shader and it's animating texture, and you've also got decal facing lure, which is the script. So do check that out, and if you've got any more questions, maybe we dedicate a whole broadcast to discussing how to use entities as decals. And but yeah, don't try looking for any decal commands. It's they're not there yet, unless you want them back. Okay, mass editing has really made my day. Well, I'm pleased to hear it. It's going to be a great next release. That's from the Scene Commander, and I agree completely. Another question from Honoris. Maybe you can implement an extra outer ring for different rotations. Just an idea. Well, we've got 3 rotations for X, Y, and Z. I can't think of any other axes, unless there's a 4th dimensional axis of time that I've not considered. But maybe you can elucidate on that comment. Rick Vanner got a comment or a question. He says, would be nice for it to highlight items as you're dragging the box so it's clear which items are being selected. Absolutely, yeah, that was a choice. I just made it a choice that, you know, get the rubber band out of the way before we do any more. It's just basically a very, very slight performance consideration. But yeah, if you want to highlight it as you go, there shouldn't really be a hit in terms of frame rate. So, Rick, this is for you only. Add it to Reich, please. And for the rest of you, that means add it to my massive list of tasks that I have to do for this next release. We've got a question from A Wanderer 189. Is the control key used in the rubber band selection? Yes, yes, yes. There's many, many things. I forget most of them. If I press G, we can go back to a top-down view. And let's say you've selected these 3 and you think, oh, wait a minute, I want these 2 barrels in my selection as well. Oh, and that one. Well, what you can do is hold down Control and then do a little teeny-weeny rubber band, and then it highlights. You see, it's kept the original highlights and added these 2. But what you can also do is just click on an entity, and then that will highlight that. So now they're all part of the same group. So you actually have the Control key, and then if you don't hold Control key and then click, it loses all your selections. But yes, you can just add as you need, no problem. I think that was essential to be able to highlight many things in one, to have it as one group before you perform whatever it is, move or an action or things like that. So that's confirmed that, and Rick has... Looks like Rick is deleting spam. We must have some robot spamming us. I suppose that's normal for Twitch, but I don't care. So Rick has textified what I've just demonstrated. Another question from Wanderer. Is there an ETA on when we might get an update of Game Guru? Yes, it'll be November. We have all agreed in the team it will be November. And we've even agreed a date, but we're not going to tell you the date. It may be buried in some news somewhere. But we want to give ourselves a bit of a flexibility on exactly when we release it. But you will have it for November. We're actually at the let's stop adding stuff and start testing it phase. So that's actually happening right now. These features that you're seeing, you know, I'm adding them reluctantly. I really want to go back and just massively test this software. So we're going to run through a bit of November. We're going to do lots and lots of testing. We're going to involve some beta testers. So by the time we actually do release it, because remember it has been a while since we released one, it has to be solid. We've completely rewritten the engine, so a lot of things could go wrong, so we want to make sure that it doesn't. So we're doing all our examples, we're getting levels from other people, we're making sure that we haven't broken anything before we release it. So yeah, November is what I'm going to tell you, and maybe middle of November will give you a bit of a general idea. But I really can't say any more than that. Until Rick, of course, blurts out the release date. Got a question. Well, I think a statement from an Aris. Lol, I should have been more clearer. I meant adding an outer ring over the same axis to control both cans of mass rotation. both kinds of mass rotation. Does anybody else know what both kinds of mass rotation are? Oh, I know what you mean. Ah, I know what you mean. Light has just dawned on Eris. I know what you mean now. What you mean is this. I put down 5 columns, 2 rows. I highlight them all. I click to rotate. Right now, you're rotating them individually. I think what Onerios is suggesting is a second ring of a different colour, that when you click that and rotate it, it actually rotates it around a common axis, so it swings the whole thing round. That actually would be quite elegant. It would fit in with the style that we've already designed around rotating like this, but it gives you both choices without having extra buttons or modes or things like that. Yeah. And maybe a shortcut if I hold down shift or something. Maybe a ring disappears and then it just defaults to the other one or something like that. But yeah, I like that idea. Of course we're going to have to add more graphics to all this. So I will be keeping my options open if there's any more suggestions. And yeah, please fire them away to me. We're going to be probably putting the lid on all these features by the end of the week. Maybe the start of next week. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And I presume by your suggestion you would like the ability to rotate all these barrels, say around this axis point here. I think there's another feature. If I just hold down Control and click there, yeah. You see you can change the point, the axis point. So you can say this is the middle of the group. So when you rotate it will rotate around this barrel. But if you hold down Control and put that one, then that's now the centre. So you can rotate around any axis point that has an entity. I've also noticed that I can actually hold down Control and just click a piece of land, but the selection isn't being removed. What if also you could hold down Control and click anywhere you want, and then maybe a little marker appears to say this is your rotation point, and then you would actually rotate completely around that axis. So another little idea that's just occurred to me. So I'm going to let the internal team watching this video make the suggestions. If anybody wants to make their own suggestions, best just to email me directly at lee@thegamecreators.com so it doesn't get lost. Remember, there's only more couple of days on this and then we're going to freeze it. That's not to say I'm not going to add any more, it's just that we need to stop adding stuff so we can start testing stuff. So let's see if there's any more on the list of questions. No, I think I've done quite well. With 8 minutes to go, there are no more questions, so I'm going to leave you another 30 seconds. If anyone got any questions, they can post it in the chat. In the meantime, I'm just going to play around with my rubber band. Oh, there's another thing that I actually fixed you might be interested in. If I go to something really huge, like a skyscraper, this was something reported by Rick, and he was having real trouble with the scale. So now what I've got is, you can obviously scale up and down, but the scale is now related to the size of the object, which it wasn't before. So if you tried to scale something really big like this massive skyscraper, you'd move the mouse a couple of pixels and the building would just rocket into the sky or squash itself into the ground. Now the actual movement of the mouse is related to the original scale of the object, so it's a lot easier to bend and twist these into whatever shape that you want. And also there isn't any this situation where you cross a sort of an invisible line and then it starts reversing the scale, which I would call a bug. Now you can actually just keep on one axis, so you can just squash it right down to that or all the way up to that, like so. So the scale, you could say it's been curved. Also, when you actually accidentally move the mouse out, before it would massively change this. It would just do some sort of weird random scale and you just never get it back. Now it just stops at wherever you was and then you can go back to where you was before. So scale has been improved and calmed, and it's a nice new feature. So there you go. And you know, it works for small objects and large objects. So we can pick this little one, scale him. We can have a barrel as big as the skyscraper if you wanted. Thus the freedom of Game Guru, in that even if it's very, very silly, you can make a game with it. It's fine. Got one more question. I think this will be the last question because we're running out of time now for a broadcast. This was sneaked in by Oneris. Can you expand a little on what you said about hiding the decal and showing it when it's needed? I need to spawn creatures, but not out of thin air. Spawn creatures but not of thin air. Zombies from a dust cloud. Oh, I see. So rather than just something suddenly appearing, you want a little bit of an effect that precedes it. Right. Okay. We literally have no time. But what I can do is walk you through the scripts that already exist. So, decalfacing.lua. If we go into the script bank and look for that. Scriptbank.lua. Decalfacing. Yeah. So as you can see, rotate the camera. It's just rotating the entity to face you no matter where you go. And then decal flat is empty, so it just leaves the decal at whatever position that you left it and doesn't mess with its rotation. But as you can see in the script, there is no mention of starting that animation off or pausing it or slowing it down or anything like that. And I'm rather suspecting the commands for that would be beyond our control. Yeah, I don't think there is any command that lets you manipulate that texture animation, which is a pity really. But what you could do certainly is have overlapping entities. So I'll give you a quick example of what I mean by that. If we zip down to the floor again and then go and find a decal, and we have something that's in a loop like a dust puff. See, dust puff, and we put a few in like this. Right. Now they'll all be playing at when you play the game, they'll all be playing at slightly different at rates. Actually, I've just had a really cool idea. What if you actually hid them by default? So if I showed you this decal on its own, you can actually click this little ring, go into properties, go to spawn, start, say no, right? So you put that over your entity just before it actually starts, and then set it to no, apply changes. And then what you do, you'd have your enemy. Let's say we go to a character, like an evil wizard or a good wizard, if you want. And then we put him down there, and obviously you'd have him spawning at the not at the start as well. So they both spawn at start equals no. And then when you want to sort of da-da, you spring him into action. Not only spawn the wizard, but also spawn this entity, the smoking one, like that. And the way you would do that, quite simply, which says dust puff, you'd have dust for wizard or something. Remember that name, it's very important the entity name is correct, even if it's spelt wrong. Dust for wizard. And then once you've got that and you've applied changes, and it's hidden, remember it doesn't spawn at the start, you can extract it and then paste it, like, you know, a few times around, like this. And you can even number them, so instead of just the same entity, you can have, you know, dust 1, dust 2, dust 3, and then in your script you would spawn those dust entities at different times. And I'm thinking, yes, that would actually have that dust puff happen at different times. So basically when you spawn the character, you'd have 5 or 6 dust puffs, poof, because of the entities spawning at different times, and then of course give each of those entities a life of say, a second. You see, or less than a second. Time it so that dust puff doesn't loop around again. So you can time it within your game, and as soon as the dust puff gets to the end, then you can use a timer and just kill off that entity, and that's how you can do it. So that's how I would do it, but I know what you want. You just want some more commands which can control that texture animation, which I think is a great idea, and maybe we can sneak them in because they're not really particularly difficult. So hopefully that was a little enlightener, how I would do it. And it gives you a lot of choices because you've got entities now, and you do anything you can do with an entity you can do with your dust particles now. So you can have dust particles kind of following you around, or you know, a trail of dust particles behind you. It's not the most elegant thing. We're going to put a particle system in Game Guru at some point, which gives you full control of tens of hundreds of thousands of particles, but right now you can use individual entities and do a great job with that. So I'm there. I'm actually almost on the hour. I'm quite pleased that I managed to get through the whole of my assigned task in 30 minutes. And so next week we may delve a little bit more into one of these subjects or something completely new. It's entirely up to you. There is a forum thread you can actually go to and post your requests. It's in forums. It's usually sticked at the top. Yes, it is. So go to product chat, and then within product chat you can find the Twitter sessions, and then you can post your request there, and then we'll read that, and then that's what we're actually going to do. So, thanks for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Not BST anymore, because that's no more. And so until next week, it may be me or it may be Ravey. I shall say goodbye and thanks very much for your attention. And now we will switch to that music.